Are Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning really on the trade market for the Denver Broncos? That's what a pair of top insiders seem to think. I don't think the Broncos are going to be heavy sellers at the trade deadline for obvious reasons. They're 5-3. I've been a huge proponent of the Broncos being buyers at the trade deadline. Try to add another weapon at tight end or at possibly wide receiver or running back. But the Broncos do have an embarrassment of riches right now at a couple of positions. The most notable one being edge rusher, and according to Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero, the Broncos could be looking to offload a couple of those assets for potential draft capital, maybe use that draft capital to make an additional trade to get a tight end or a wide receiver, or even maybe a straight up trade just player for player. Let's go ahead and bring in this article by Rappaport and Pelissero on NFL.com. It names several players who could be getting traded as we get ahead of the deadline, and Baron Browning, you'll see, is amongst this list. A converted off-ball linebacker who had 4.5 sacks last year. Browning's playing time has dwindled in Denver, and he's in a contract year. He could be available. Denver has the depth at that position. Linebacker Jonathon Cooper could also draw interest as well. I personally don't think the Denver Broncos are going to move on from Jonathon Cooper. He had 8.5 sacks last year. He's on pace for double-digit sacks this year. I feel like it was always going to be between either Baron Browning or Jonathon Cooper, which one of those two guys was going to get the contract extension because they both were in the same contract year. I think that at this point, Cooper has clearly established himself as a mainstay on this Broncos defense. And Browning, although the flashes of talent have been very apparent, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy this year, or in previous years either. He went down earlier this year with an injury. He spent time on IR last year with an injury. He has 9 total sacks on his career. And I feel like at this point, the potential hasn't matched the production for Baron Browning. And like I said, a lot of it's due to injuries, but that doesn't matter. You're going to keep the more productive player who's been able to stay on the field. And Jonathon Cooper, he's been more productive, and he's been able to stay on the field. So I believe the Denver Broncos would be foolish to move on from Jonathon Cooper. But Baron Browning, I could definitely see that. I think the Broncos could probably acquire, I don't know, a 6th-round pick for Baron Browning, and that 6th-round pick could then be used to maybe acquire a wide receiver like Deontay Johnson or maybe a tight end like David Njoku. That could be essentially a player-for-player swap, even if you have to get a third team involved. It would almost be like a 3-team trade in a sense. That's something that could really make sense for the Denver Broncos, and at this point, Browning hasn't really produced this year. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. I think that the Broncos should probably move on now and accumulate draft capital for him while they still can. They do have the chance to maybe get a compensatory draft pick back if he walks in free agency, but that would potentially be offset by the amount of free agents that the Denver Broncos sign this year, or this next year, which is probably going to be pretty high. So I think that the smart move would be to put Browning up on the trade market, see what you could get for him. I think you could probably at least get something for him as opposed to a player like Greg Dulcich, who doesn't have much trade value at this point. I don't even think you could get a future pick for Greg Dulcich because he's not even playing for you right now. He's been on the inactive list for several weeks. But Browning, I could definitely see that. I am curious, Broncos country, do you think the Denver Broncos should consider trading Baron Browning at the trade deadline? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support, helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.